Hello YouTube, Stillborn86 here with a Linux video. I've had a few people PMing me, asking me, what version of Linux I use, um, how I use it, yada yada yada. So I thought I'd make this video really quickly. Recently I started using Arch Linux because of the Ubuntu, Kubuntu, UCC debacle, the drama that's happening there. And I decided I didn't want to be part of that. I've stopped supporting Ubuntu, stopped giving them code, stopped helping them develop, stopped donating to them, stopped everything. That's neither here nor there. That's a video for another time. You're here to learn how to install Arch Linux. First and foremost, the most important thing I want to tell you is you should never use a blog post, a write-up, or a video like this one to install Arch. You should always go to the Arch Wikipedia page, which has an installation guide right here that will tell you exactly what you need to do to install Arch. That being said, I'm making this video to help kind of walk you through this, to help you understand exactly what's happening, because some of it is kind of nebulous and kind of difficult to understand. That being said, let's get started. First, let's create an Arch virtual machine. I'm going to do 32-bit so I don't have to use a whole lot of RAM, and that will come into play with swap space, and we'll explain that later. 512 megabytes for RAM, virtual hard drive, virtual box, dynamically allocated, looks good. 8 gigs should be fine for what we need. You can make it however large you want. You can set your RAM and your hard drive space to anything you want. You can even do 64-bit if you want. That won't change too much. So I'll point that out when it does. Let's go ahead and point to our Arch ISO. This is a little older, 2015-0601. It is July 4th right now, so the 0701 dual ISO should be out. But that shouldn't be a big deal since Arch is a rolling distro. You can look up what that means. I won't explain that because that's a video for another time. That will take forever. So let's go ahead. Since I did pick a 32-bit processor, I only have the i686 option here. I don't have an existing OS since we just created this virtual hard drive. If you're either loading a 64-bit system or if you did a 64-bit virtual machine, you'll have that option above this, I think, or maybe between these two. I can't remember. But I only have the one since this is 32-bit. So we're going to go ahead and select this, hit enter, and start the install. It should unpack, should start booting. Good. The one reason that I didn't choose the 64-bit install is because it will need more RAM. That will change the amount of swap space that we need, which is a highly debated process. Some people like to do swap space differently. We'll get to that here in a second. Welcome to Arch. Everything's okay. Looks like it's starting up. It will give me some firmware, hardware flags. You don't have this firmware. Something's not working. That's normal for VirtualBox. You can look up what those codes are. I think one's solid state something or another. Maybe I know I'm wrong about that. It's something. Oh, it didn't give me the errors. Cool. Automatic login for root. Let me log in. There we go. Let me take a second here to change the keyboard because I cannot type on this QWERTY keyboard. And we're there. I have a default keyboard. Let's clear our space. First thing you want to do is look at your hard drives. List all the disks that you have. I'm going to actually pipe this into less so we can up and down through this. What we are primarily interested in is this 8 gig SDA, DEV/SDA. That's actually our hard drive. We do have loop 1, loop 2. Those are other aspects of our hard drive, but we're primarily worried about this SDA. So now we can hit Q to quit out of this if you did that pipe less. And we can CF disk. I don't know why I just did that. Into dev SDA. And I'm going to select GPT for the partition table. Now we have, as you can see right here, I can't actually use my mouse. It says 8 gigs for free space over here. So we're going to create a new partition. I'm going to create 7 gigs, and that will leave me with 1 megabyte shy of a gig. And we're going to change this to swap. Okay? I know that was fast. What we're doing here is we're creating a file system of 7 gigs for Arch. We're going to have a 7 gig hard drive. We're creating a 1 gig swap space. Now, swap space is again, like I said a little while ago, a highly debated process. Personally, I like to use twice as much as my RAM. And since we selected 512 megabytes for RAM, I'm using 1023 or 1 gig for swap. Some people like to use, a certain number of gigabytes. Some people like to use more. Some people like to use less. Swap space, in a nutshell, kind of hand-wavy explanation here. When your computer goes into sleep mode or hibernation mode, it cuts the power off to your RAM, and that means all the data on your RAM is gone. The web page that's loaded, the programs that are open, the text document you're typing, all that goes away. And so what Linux does to combat losing all that data is it utilizes this swap space. And it'll take all the data out of your RAM and load it onto your hard drive into the swap partition, this empty space that's reserved just for this. And when you take your computer out of hibernation, it pulls it back out of swap and puts it on your RAM, and you're good to go again. Everything loads back up the way it's supposed to. So really the only hard and fast rule is that your swap space has to be at least the size of your RAM, because if you have your RAM maxed out and then you go into hibernation mode and your swap space isn't as big as your RAM, then you have data that you're going to lose because it can't load everything in swap. So you're going to have problems. I personally, again, I like doing twice as much as my RAM just to have, safe space, and, a safe buffer zone in case sectors go bad or something happens, or just in case. So again, that's highly debated. You can do whatever you want. You can have 1 megabytes for swap if you want. I don't care. But right now we're going to move on. We're going to write. Have to type in yes for that to write. We can either hit Q or we can tab over and quit, and we should be good to go. Now that we have partitioned our hard drive, which set keyword layout, partition disks, now we're going to format the partitions. We're going to make a file system for the SDA1 partition, which is our main file system, right? So MKFS for make file system. We're going to make an ext4 file system at dev SDA1, because that's what that is. And it's done. Now we're going to mount that so we can actually use it to the MNT folder or area. Linux sees drives as folders, so we're going to mount this to mount MNT. So now we have access to our actual file system. We also want to make the swap partition for our swap space, SDA2, and we want to turn that on. So we're going to dev SDA2. Good. Now we have formatted both of our partitions. You can have more partitions, you can have less partitions that can be more complex. Again, this is all bare bones, so we're gonna go straight into this. We're gonna clear this again, just so we have good space. We already mounted to the MNT, so we can skip that. Connect to the internet. We should already be connected. Let's check. Cool. We're getting 3 packets, 0% packet loss. Good. So we are already connected. And we will set up NATCL when we're actually in Arch. So we'll wait on that for a second. Right now, we want to install Arch. We will do that with the pack strap program, and since we are mounted at MNT, we're gonna load Packstrap into MNT, which is our hard drive. And technically, we only need base. Okay, this is just base Arch Linux, but I like to have other things like base Devil for development tools. We are going to need a bootloader. It's actually going to tell you down here install a bootloader. So I'm going to install Grub now because I'm already installing things. Why not? And since we are going to do a GUI, we're going to need certain tools like Xorg tools. I can't type. Man, I can't type. Xorg server, Xorg init. We're going to need Xorg server, utils. Why is this thing repeating keystrokes? And we're going to need Xorg apps. 1, 2, 3, 4. That should be everything, I think. I don't think I've missed anything. If you're going to do wireless, we are not. We are actually, if I can find my mouse, there it is. We're actually connected through the Ethernet. But if you are going to do wireless, you're going to need the dialogue. You're going to need WPA supplicant. But I don't because I'm already going to have. I'm not using wireless. We are going to need ALSA for sound because we want to be able to hear our GUI, and these are completely optional. I like using Vim instead of Nano, and I like having access to my GitHub repositories, and I also like using Terminator for my terminal emulator. Man, I can't talk or type today. But those are all up to you. Packstrap is just going to install programs. You can choose whatever you want. You can do Tmux if you want. You can do LibreOffice if you want. It's all up to you. If you want Xfce to give you a fortune at the beginning of your shell startup, you can do Xfce and then fortune mod. You can install whatever you want. Well, it's there. Let's install it. We're going to hit enter. It's going to start. It's going to create the install route at the mount point. It's going to start synchronizing the databases, and then it should give us a big body here. Oh, no, something is not. Oh, I typed in something wrong. Instead of Xorg init, I do this every time. I don't know why. It's Xorg xinit. Now it should synchronize and install. Big body, there it is. All of this that just went up was all the packages that we're going to install, and then down here is the process of actually installing each package individually. This will take a while, so I'm going to actually step away and let this do its thing. I will come back when it's done, and we will catch back up. So I'll see you in a minute. Alright, YouTube, we're back. We have, as you can see, finished. We now have a root prompt again. We have used 47% of the CPU, 47% of the system, yada yada yada, whatever. If you paid attention to the install process, you probably got 2 firmware modules that errored out. I know I did. We won't really worry about that yet. If you did, they will pop up here in a minute. They're not important firmware modules. It's essentially saying that VirtualBox doesn't have certain hardware, which it doesn't have any hardware. So let's continue. We will first want to access our mount point, the actual operating system we just installed by arch ch root in the mount point. And as you can see, our prompt changed. We are now in the shell. We're actually in as root. And the very first thing you want to do is choose a password for your root access. And that's going to be done with PASSWD. And you'll pick a password, which I will do right now. The password, they do not match. Okay, let's try to get a matching password. Why do they not match? What is happening? Okay, updated successfully. That's what I wanted. This password is probably the most important password that you'll have for your system. If you lose this password, you might as well just start over and lose, because it's going to be a hell of a time recovering your data without this password. So now that we have secured our system, because it obviously was unsecured, we literally right here at arch-chroot logged in as root, and it didn't prompt us for a username or password or anything. It just logged us in, so that we just created a password. So next time we do this, we're going to have to enter a password. So now that we're here, we're going to set up our locale. Again, I installed Vim. If you didn't, you want to do Nano, but I'm going to do Vim. We're going to do Xfce locale.gen. Enter. Then you're going to come down to these uncommented lines. You're going to find your locale. Mine is English. Oh no, too far. What's happening? EN-US, right there. Man, I just went back and forth. I think this video capture is taking up a whole lot of resources. So anyway, English US, I am in the US, and I speak English, obviously. So these are the two that I'm going to pick. You pick whatever ones are pertinent to you, and you uncomment them. That means getting rid of this octothorpe here. And then we will write. It is written. So now that we have that, we're going to locale gen and create the locale. Locale. Locale gen. And it's going to generate the locale files for, the two things we just uncommented. And we're done. This should actually be, I don't even know where they say it. It's in here. So there it is, locale gen. So now that we've done that, we're going to want to set up our local time, okay? Which is actually above this. I'm doing this backwards, but whatever. You're going to want to cd into usr user share, and then zone info. And then if you hit ls, it will give you a bunch of places. Again, I'm in the US here, so I'm going to cd into US, and I'm going to ls again, and then I'm going to pick Eastern time. Okay. So because of this, we're going to use this line right here, ln-sf/user share. We're going to do zone info, and then I'm going to pick US, and then Eastern. I don't know why I did that. And then we're going to want to put this into Xfce local time. etc local time. Done. Oh, no. Okay. Not ls. What am I doing? I didn't even read it correctly. lnsf. And we're done. There we go. I can't type today. I can't even make myself a sandwich while we were all gone waiting for this to install. I made myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and cut it into rectangles like an animal instead of triangles. That was the worst peanut butter and jelly sandwich I've ever had. Now we are going to create a host name file. So we're going to do echo, and we're going to call this, arch VB. And we're going to put this into, again, Xfce hostname. Okay? And now that has named our computer, that's here somewhere, echo computer name, Xfce hostname. Okay, so there we are. I'm just trying to follow this. I do things a little differently. I do things kind of as I remember them. Now I'm going to create a new user because you don't want to log in as root every time because that's really dangerous and that's not cool. So I'm going to use the user add function, and we're going to -m-g, and I'm going to put them in the users category, and I'm going to put them in the, let's call it the wheel subcategory, -s, and we're gonna create this file in bin bash, and I'm gonna say the new user's name is going to be my handle, stillborn86. Done. Now, again, so we are securing our system, we're going to want to change the password, PASSWD, for my handle, and I choose to make this different than my root password because I like being secure. Some people will use the same password because they're dumb, but we won't do that, right? So now that we have created a user, we've set everything up. We well, let's actually go in and give the new user sudo access. Again, I'm going to use Vim. You can use Nano. Vim etc sudoers, and we're going to go down and find the wheel. Oh, there it is. Wheel all, and we want to uncomment this because we added them to wheel, if you remember, and then we will write. Oh, no. Overwrite. There we go. Written. Again, you can do nano, and you can, etc sudoers, and it'll give you the same file. Nano is a little bit different. I don't really like it. Commands are different. It's whatever. And now Stillborn86 should have sudo capability. So next thing we want to do is turn on sound. Let's use ALSA that we decided to install before. Otherwise, we'd have to use Pacman to install it. But here we already have it, which is good. We're going to want to set the gain for everything to 0. You can see, master mono. I'm changing that to 0 for everything that I can. And all you do is use your arrow keys left and right, and then to select, you can see at the bottom down here, I'm selecting, each channel, and I'll use up and down to change it, and then we'll hit the escape button to save those. Now we have sound for our system. We'll be able to test that here in a second. So since, again, when we used Packstrap, we installed Grub, we should be able to, or we downloaded Grub, we should be able to actually install Grub with Grub install, and we'll do that to the actual hard drive, SDA, and this should run by itself. This is where those 2 missing firmware warnings will pop up. Oh, error will not proceed with block lists. Oh, okay. It's having a problem with our BIOS. We don't actually have a BIOS since this is a virtual machine, so we're going to force it. Installing. Come on. Do it. Oh, no error report. Good. And then now that that's done, we're going to make a init CPIO. Okay. Init CPIO. -o/boot grub.cfg. Who to what? Oh, no. I'm mixing things up now. -p Linux. I'm sorry, people. Just bear with me. This is a little rough. It's gonna tell us. This is where it's gonna tell us that we're missing firmware packages. There it is. Making it CPIO. It was right in front of me right here, and I still did it wrong. And this is where it wants you to set the root password that we did at the very beginning, because I have priorities instead of doing it very last. I guess it doesn't really matter. I just like taking care of security first. Install bootloader. That's what we just did. It will have you reboot. We're going to do a couple things first. See, there's the warning for the 2 missing firmware items that came in for the install. You can look up what WD719X is and what the other one is as well. They're not very important. They're going to pop up because we're in a virtual machine. Essentially, it's telling us we don't have certain firmware. And technically we don't have any firmware. Everything is virtualized, so it's not a big problem. We're going to let this init CPIO do its thing. It should be finishing here soon. Come on. This screen recorder must be taking up a lot of resources, because this usually doesn't take this long. And essentially what we're doing is we're making hardware profiles for our system. Now we need to make a Grub configure file. This is where O comes from. And this is essentially going to tell our system to boot up. It shouldn't take too long here. And we are literally done at this point. So we can exit out of the shell and go back into the root installer. And now we want to generate an fstab or fstab file system table is what it is. So this is kind of like a table of contents at the beginning of the book that tells you, where each chapter is and how where each chapter starts and begins. That's what this is doing. It's just telling you where each piece of the hard drive starts and begins, from what I understand. So now that we're done, now that everything is done, we're gonna unmount with umount -R, which that should actually be up here somewhere. What is happening? I don't know what just happened. We'll unmount file system at MNT, and then we're going to reboot the system. This is a good time to actually take the disk from the hard drive, force unmount. Now I'm going to throw caution to the wind and just actually close this, because it's done what it needed to do. So now that we go back to VirtualBox, we can start this back up, and it should boot directly into Grub. Welcome to Grub. And I can wait 3 or 4 seconds, but I'm going to hit enter because I'm impatient. Loading Linux. It's going to start up Arch. Version 2.2.1. Giving us a couple errors. Failed to create mount unit file. That's okay. And now we have login. Now we can either log in as root, or we can log in as the user that we created. I'm going to actually do that. And we're in. As you can see, I'm in as my user, stillborn86 on ArchVB. We echoed that in. I'm actually going to go ahead and change my keyboard again because it reverts after the reboot. No convert to make it stick through reboots. Oh, let's do sudo as root. Ask for a password, which should work since we uncommented wheel. Now we're in Dvorak, so let's clear this out. Now we're ready to go. We are booted in as our user. Sudo works. We just verified that. So we should be good to go. Now let's see if we have internet access. Nothing. Which is why I don't understand why it wants you to set up the internet up here with any TCL, because we're about to do that now, since, it just didn't work. So let's go to Xfce, netctl, and then examples. And if you ls, it'll give you a list of different profiles. You can have Ethernet custom dynamic IP, static IP. You can have wireless over here on the right side. There's a whole bunch of stuff. But since, again, we're using Ethernet, I'm going to use a dynamic profile, dynamic Ethernet. So we're going to copy, sudo copy Xfce, netctl, examples, and we're going to pick Ethernet, Dhcp, and we're going to copy that into Xfce, netctl, and we're done. Now we're going to clear our workspace a little bit. If you type in IPA, it will give you all the information for your internet IP addresses. LO, we're not really worried about. Your ENP is actually going to be your Ethernet. So you might want to write that down, ENP0S3, because we're going to need that here in a second. Again, we're going to use Vim. Actually, let's use Nano. I've used Vim this whole time. We'll use Nano, Xfce. We're going to go into the file we just copied into netctl CTL Ethernet. And you see over here where it says Ethernet 0, we're actually going to want to change that into ENP0S3, because that's what it is. We can control X. It's going to ask you if you want to save. Yes. It's going to ask you to name it. Enter. And then see, this is why I don't like. You know what? Let's just let's go back to Vim. No, let's Vim this, because I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Xfce, netctl, Ethernet. Okay, now that we're here, oh, I know what's going on. We need to be root. Now we're written. Okay, now that we have that, now that we've set the profile with our actual hardware, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to start netctl. So we're going to sudo start, netctl start, and then we're going to do Ethernet-DHCP, because that's what the profile is called. Hit enter, and it should have started. Now we want this to start automatically across reboots, so we're going to also enable Ethernet DHCP. It's going to do its thing. Already exists. So if we do ping-c3, if I can type, now we're pinging. We don't have an unknown host. We have internet access. Good. Okay. Here you can update sudo pacman. It'll synchronize, it'll update. Everything's up to date. Should be, because we just installed. But it's good to check. Good to check. So here we're going to check our video card to set up proper video processing, because as you can see here, this doesn't change size when I actually do things. So we're going to lspci-k grep -A to ubuntu-i VGA. And this is going to tell you what kind of graphics adapter you have here. Of course, we're running VirtualBox graphics adapter, so we're going to need the VirtualBox. It can tell you Intel, ATI, NVIDIA, whatever. And that's something you're going to have to pick out of here. Since we're doing VirtualBox, I'm going to install that. Sudo pacman-s, and we're going to do VirtualBox guest, this keyboard, utils. What is wrong with this? And it should download. Yes, we want to install it. And while this does its thing, let's actually search the wiki here. Let's install Xfce, since that's a pretty common desktop environment. Let's install that one. So we're going to want to install the Xfce4 group, which shouldn't be too difficult. We will sudo pacman-s Xfce4. It's going to ask which repository we want to pull from. Let's no, it's going to ask us if we want everything. Yes, we want all of it. Proceed with the installation. This will take a minute because there's so much. Should have done OpenBox. That would have been really quick. But oh well. So while we're doing this, we can look up the xinitrc. Since we already installed that, we don't have to worry about installing it. It's already in. We did that with the pack strap. Right here, it's going to first thing it tells you is install it. We already did it, so we can skip that. Configuration, we're going to have to copy a file over to make it work, which you'll have to wait here for a second. And then we're going to have to add some things to the xinitrc. What is the executable for this? Execute start Xfce4. So we will add that when it's ready. I really should have done OpenBox. That would have been a lot faster. It's installing, so this should actually go. This is the downhill part here. Power Manager, ISO codes, GNOME icon theme. I like OpenBox better, but eh. True type fonts, cool. Okay, so now that we're here, we want to follow this direction here. Copy etc x11 xinit xinitrc. We want to copy that to .xinitrc. Done. Now we're going to edit that. Come down here, just like it says. Where are we here? I actually don't understand why it wants us to comment these out, but we'll do it. And we need to add this line, Xfce start, if I can type, Xfce4 to the command here, and we should be able to write out. And if we reboot, oh no. Okay. Now that we've followed all these instructions, everything should be able to run with the startx command. So once we're in here, okay, so let's stillborn 86, log in, we're here, clear it out. We will start X. You can see the window's resized because we loaded guest utils. And it's jumping around doing its thing. Trying to resize again. Let's just maximize this. Welcome to your first start of the panel. Let's use the default configuration. And here we are, Xfce. This is Arch Linux, ladies and gentlemen. We have installed Arch Linux. We have a file system here that we can open up. I think this is Thunar, if I remember right. A couple desktops that we can choose from if we want. We should have internet. Let's check. Oh man, it's yep. The network stuck through the reboots. We're good to go. And you can start installing things. Your application should be here, like we installed Terminator here. And it's in here. Again, I like Terminator. It just gives us more options. I can split windows however I want. Kind of like Tmux, but more graphical. I don't like the standard terminal emulator. But this is Xfce. This is one of the more common desktop environments. You can do whatever you can do. LXDE. You can do OpenBox. You can do GNOME. You can do whatever you want. This is just a standard. Again, if you wanna go back and do a different desktop environment, you would down here instead of execute Xfce4, you would pick something else. You do like I think it's OpenBox-session. You install OpenBox and it's execute OpenBox session. You can do LXDE. You can do whatever you want. Download LXDE common and OpenBox and execute start LXDE. It tells you exactly what you need to do and how you need to do it. These kind of get a little detailed, a little nebulous, but we have Arch. We are running Arch Linux. We can, this thing is killing me. Why would they do this? Settings. Where is the keyboard? Killing me. Layout. And let's go to English. US. Dvorak. Okay. Let's remove that completely. Close. we can synchronize. Look at that. Everything's running exactly how it should be. So if you have any questions, you can PM me, comment, subscribe. I try to do videos pretty frequently, pretty often, but last couple months have been kind of hectic. I've skipped over, so I decided to make this really long video for you all. I hope this was a great learning experience for everybody, and I hope you all took away everything everything you wanted to take away. Let's do something here. Something seems out of place. Panel preferences, items. Oh, I bet you I need to install the Whisker launcher. That's what's happening. That's what I'm missing. Where is it here? Whisker menu plugin. That's what it is. So if we do see, if we hadn't done the guest utils, it wouldn't take up full screen. It would still be in that tiny little box, and we'd have to work with that. So we can do sudo pack man s whisker menu plugin. Why not? Oh, man, I'm done. Let's make sure we did this correctly now. Xfce 4, yes. There we go. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to take up more of your time. As you can see, these wiki pages are very, very helpful. They're very nice. They tell you exactly what you need to do. The one problem I have with Arch is that whenever you come up with a problem, they say, a lot of times they tell you, RTFM, read the fucking manual, and that's true, but I don't know. It's sometimes the manual's hard to interpret. Sometimes there's a lot there's a lot of nebulous information in the manuals, and there we go. This is what I like, and then we have settings here. Yeah, there we go. This is a little bit better, but yeah, RTFM. When they say that, this is what they mean. Go back here, read this. This literally has all the information you need. I would recommend to follow this as opposed to any other blog or write-up or video, even mine. I strongly suggest not following mine to the T, because I had typos, I had problems, I had issues, and I would not recommend doing that. Read the manual, find things that can help you interpret the manual if you need. Hopefully, this will be an interpretation tool. And get familiar with your operating system. Help build your operating system. You can if you read the manual, it'll tell you what each of the pieces do. Where were we here? The installation guide, there's actually a beginner's guide here that will tell you exactly what, it goes into a little more detail of what pieces do what and why you're doing things, and this becomes a little more nebulous and a little harder to follow for me, but some of you might like that better. I hope you enjoyed the video. I know it's a long one. I know there was a lot of information. I went really fast and I had some typos that were not cool, but we did get it up and running. We did get things working, and I'm gonna get rid of this because this is annoying. I'm actually installing another dock back here. What? What's happening here? No, I don't want that. I want panel. Panel preferences. Panel 1. No. Where is... Oh, there it is. Panel 2. Let us delete this, because I don't want that. Close. And again, you can, you can set up Arch any way you want. I just got rid of that panel. I'm going to set up a dock here, make it more OS X-like. There we go, docky. Look at that. Very OS X. There's Thuna. Okay, we can Thunar for right here. We've got Terminator up here. You can customize Arch any way you want, just like I just have. That's all up to you. Do what you want. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to PM me. I'll try to answer them as best as possible. I'll try not to be an asshole in RTFM, because this, again, nebulous, difficult to follow. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Now that I've said that 3 or 4 times now, I hope you've learned something. Stillborn86 out.